Welcome, Dean Allen. Let's see where we are. We've got the mics on. Everything's right. You never know what's going to happen, Dean. Thank you for coming on. Fantastic to have you here in PE.
No, what a joy being here. And cheers to everybody out there. Thank you. Cheers to everyone.
Thank you for joining us tonight. You know, tonight is it's been, you know, I think it's been quite a journey with you because let me tell you, Dean knows a lot and has learned a lot in the last couple of weeks or months about social media as well. It's just your brand is kind of exploding here. You've just moved to PE all the way from Cape Town. Oh my God! What are you busy with at the moment? What are you doing here in PE?
Well, talk about being in the right place at the right time, Gino. I mean, this is great to be on this show. I mean, you're just a legend in PE. I mean, everybody said you had to be on the Gino Spot show.
So to get on the G spot.
I'm on the G spot, but we won't go there tonight. No, it's fantastic to be in PE. We moved here about 2 months ago. Been invited to write, we'll talk about it, The History of Conservation by Mr. Adrian Gardner, which is an absolute honour.
Fantastic.
So, as people are moving to Cape Town, as you know, from all around the country, I decided to go against the flow and come to the Eastern Cape. Because this is the real place, isn't it? The real people.
It's the hardest that you've ever worked.
Well, I've been working with Gary over the last few days preparing this show, and I tell you what, that guy works hard, and he's been keeping me going, I'm telling you. What we do actually as entrepreneurs, as entertainers, as speakers, you really do work, because you've got to hustle all the time. You've got to get your material together, but you've also got to get your audience. So it's really hard.
Because you do a lot of speaking engagements as well.
Speaking engagements, and I still engage with schools and universities and things like that. But if I think about really when I was really focused and dedicated, it's probably during the PhD. Now, anybody ever says to you a PhD is a test of intelligence, well, of course it is, but it's a test of discipline. And I tell you what, that thing sat on my shoulder for 5 years. And once I started, I had to finish it. But no, talk about hard work. And it was, and I gave up a lot. There was a lot of sacrifice there as well. So if anybody does 2 PhDs in their life, they need their heads tested, I tell you. But no, that was a hard period.
Because you've been told about the first one already, you know.
No, definitely.
Classic. Okay, so most uncomfortable place you've ever slept?
Well, that's in South Africa, and I remember this. When I first came here, I fell in love with Cape Town, and I would get invitations to go on hikes and go places, and they would say, right, let's take this Englishman up the mountain. So Table Mountain was there, and the hiking club of South Africa had the hut, and they were the only people allowed, I don't know if it's still the case today, the only people allowed to sleep on Table Mountain overnight, and I got an invitation to go with them. But unfortunately, this day, it was wet, it was misty. I couldn't see a hand in front of my face. And when we got to the hut, and I was already miserable and fed up anyway, they said, because you're the newcomer, we'll let you sleep outside tonight. I was outside. I was outside in the wet, the mist, the damp, on top of Table Mountain in a sleeping bag. And I honestly say I couldn't wait to get down off of that mountain. So that's probably that's
pretty hectic. Outside, no, I'm not a big one for sleeping under the stars.
I'm not into camping really. You've got to have a nice bed and a shower and a.
Was it windy?
It wasn't wind, it was just wet. I just woke up and I remember the drips were off my nose. And they said, did you enjoy yourself? And of course, me being polite, it was wonderful.
Oh, lovely.
No, never again. I went on, I did A-levels, did okay, and I went and worked in the bank locally. But that background, I was at that moment, I wasn't ready to go to university or see the world. I was quite happy plodding along, living for, as most Brits do, for the Saturday night, for the sport and their night out. And I got my car and I was quite happy with life. But I think your first crossroads in life, Gino, I don't know if you know, is sort of in your mid-20s when you realise, okay, the novelty's wearing out now, but what's next? And that's when I met Van der Merwe, and she brought me to South Africa. And she gave me the confidence. In fact, I think she filled in the form for university.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And she said, well, why don't you go? So the whole thing kind of developed like that. So the background, I was almost, I needed to come out of my shell.
Well, I was my wife, I know my wife is going to be analysing you already, because she works with children and she's always, especially with ADD kids like myself, and children that you were saying younger, so perhaps not as mature as the kids in older kids in the class, and always on the back foot. So, do you think that was a thing?
Yeah, no, very much so. And there was so much competition as well. I mean, the only thing I could really sort of excel at was my sport, and even then there were people better than me. And that's what I say to students now. It's important that kids realise that they're not necessarily they know what they're going to do at 16, 17, 18. They're making some of the biggest decisions of their life, whether they go into a job or go to university. Yeah. And when I teach them, especially first years at university, I'll say to them, look at my example. You may change, you will change. I think I saw a stat that you have 3 major career changes in your life on average. Yeah. So mine came in my mid-20s that changed the whole thing. Mm-hmm. But the interesting thing about it, I always felt I wanted to be sort of a teacher, and I enjoyed kids, I liked sport. Yeah. So that's what I signed up to do, actually, become a physical education teacher. Okay. But me being me, I looked at the circle around home, and I didn't want to go more than an hour and a half away from home. I mean, that's what a small town boy I was. So I ended up at Cardiff, and I would come home every weekend. But then I got the opportunity to go to Stellenbosch University for a semester. Wow. And because she was down here then, and I came back down, wow, this thing just changed my life.
And are you still in touch with her?
Unfortunately not. I bumped into her mum and dad about a year or two ago, and they said a lovely thing. They said, "We're following your journey, Dean." And I said, "Give her my regard." I think she ran off with a rich businessman from Victoria, but that's another thing. But no, the lady changed my life.
Yes, of course.
She did. The distance thing did for us in terms of the romance, but she saw something in me, and I'd forever be grateful. I thank her in my book, and it's a wonderful thing.
That's great. Now, South Africans are. I have a different viewpoint from you, so it's actually interesting to note. We always think, the English people think South Africans are very hard workers, but do they really?
Well, there is a reputation for that, of course. I know. I mean, when we didn't have to get visas, of course. I mean, you would go over there, and South Africans could be found everywhere. Well, let's face it, they're found everywhere anyway in the world. But I certainly know with that group, the dentists, they were employed in the NHS, and they used to call it the filling factory. Because as my British friends will know, our dentistry isn't the best. We're not known for our great teeth. And these poor South Africans would turn up and have to work for the NHS, and they were horrified at the amount of fillings they would have to do. I always remember that. And I know, I love the dentists in this country. That's an advantage of being here. But no, they were there because of the opportunity. It was seen as even today, to go to Britain, it's an opportunity. I've always seen my opportunity here in South Africa. I know, it's almost like I've found the place I need to be.
Well, I love to hear that, Dean. I love to. I'm sure a lot of people do, because a lot of us have stuck it out, and I'm one that believes it. Just stay. I mean, I love this place. We have a beautiful way of life, and I want to stay here. Yeah. Absolutely do. And a lot of people are immigrating, but I'm glad to know that you're coming out from there to here. It's a good sign.
For me, it's all about the people. I struck a chord with the people. I love the lifestyle. It's outdoor lifestyle. It's sunshine. You don't have to plan a week or a month in advance if you go and visit somebody. It's all spontaneous. Life is a bit more freer here. Yeah. Yet we've got probably the worst reputation or worst marketing department in world tourism, if example, because people don't really understand what it's like here. And as I often say, when I go back to the UK and do talks, I wouldn't be there if it was awful. I've travelled. I've lived in Australia. I've travelled around America. I've been all around the world. This place has got something special. It's the best kept secret. But because of its reputation for the other stuff, which we have got, we've got problems with crime and politics and those kind of things. It really takes away from what we have here. It's got soul. I think that's something I found. Africa has soul.
As you were talking about rugby, these big boertjies in Stellenbosch and in South Africa playing rugby, but it's an English sport. Is that not a success of the British Empire?
Totally.
I mean, I presume you bring it up in the book. The book is Empire War and Cricket. I mean, it's
tied in.
It's all tied in together.
I mean, the thing about Mikey's Fontaine. I mean, that's my number one hit. Yes, it sold 15,000 copies. The book has really put me on the map. I've told that story hundreds and hundreds of times. I sell it as a Downton Abbey of South Africa. Okay. It's fantastic, but the kind of characters, Cecil Rhodes, Queen Victoria, Lord Kitchener, these kind of people, Rudyard Kipling, they're all featured here in South Africa because of gold and diamonds. This is where the British Empire was focused on for a time. Wow. And what did they do? Yes, they fought a war here, but they sent their sports teams down. Because if you played together, you did business together. And eventually, you were part of the empire. It was the old man's club, the gentleman's club. And I could see, and Mikey's Fontaine, By the way, for anybody who doesn't know Mikey's Fontaine, it's a quirky little place in the middle of nowhere, but it's very famous here in South Africa. Nobody had written its story. So after I'd finished my master's degree at Stellenbosch, I realised there was this idea of cricket starting somewhere. Now we know that the first ever test match was here at St George's Park.
Okay.
By the way, PE, the first cricket match, so it is
Okay, there we go. Well, you know, all the settlers were here, I suppose.
Yeah, of course
Made it easier.
Of course they were.
Yes.
But Mikey's Fontaine was so important because there was a Lucy like this, there was a Scotsman that set up.
All the Scotsmen
They're
were
always
Lucy.
influential. They're always influential. But this guy was 24 years of age. He arrived 4 years before. He was working class, and he made his money through gold and diamonds.
Okay.
So he used cricket and sport and the building of this model Victorian town as a smokescreen for his activities.
Oh.
And he also bought his
What was
own.
he doing? Laundering money or something?
Well, it's insider trading and illegal diamond buying, and that's how Cecil Rhodes. Come on, Gino.
no,
That's how Cecil Rhodes got rich.
Well, I knew Cecil Rhodes wasn't particularly nice.
Really, they were industrious, we
Yes,
can put it
yeah,
like that.
yeah.
But the point is that sport was brought down as part of this almost political move to control South Africa.
Okay.
And the Brits did that. Look at India, where they play cricket today.
Yes.
You know, I mean, look at the power. Australia, they play the British sport. So
Yes.
wherever the British were, they took their games with them. But here in South Africa was my opportunity because nobody had really written.
About the cricket. About sport.
And the beauty of that book, I managed to get hold of the family archives. So there's,
Wow.
I mean, this was a people story. I could write this man's story. I saw the letters from
But
his
his
wife.
name was
James Logan.
James Logan.
James Logan.
Okay. Yeah, James Logan.
And Cecil Rhodes is on record as saying he'd only ever met 2 creators in his lifetime. Himself, of course,
Oh, of course, yeah.
and James Douglas Logan of Mikey's Fontaine. So he clearly admired the man.
Yes.
So it was amazing. It was like a gift from God that I could write this story, and it put me on the map here. And every time somebody says to me, well, you're English, you don't really know, I say, I went to Stellenbosch and I wrote the book of Mikey's Fontaine.
Yeah.
And then straight away they go, fair enough. So, you know, it gives me that credibility in terms of acceptance.
Any interesting stories you could give us from there? Just a bit of a teaser for the book or a...
Well, a great story is I'm all about history teaching us what's happening today. So we can look for examples from the past. If we don't learn from our history, it will repeat itself. Look what's happening in in Europe at the moment with Russia and Ukraine. I mean, that's someone trying to expand an empire. We won't go there, but we can see from history this is not going to end well if that continues.
Yeah.
So my thing is looking from examples from what happened at Mikey's Fontaine to actually go into how we can relate to today in South Africa. So James Logan, wonderful story. He was a railwayman and he made his money from basically having the restaurants along the railway network. Because there was no such thing as a dining car in those days, you see. You'd have to stop, 20 minutes, eat your dinner, pay the price and get back on. Now what do they say about Scotsmen, Gino? You know what this is?
Well, I've got, the deep pockets.
Deep pockets,
That's
deep
right.
pockets. So they say James Logan served his soup so hot that they couldn't finish it in time and it went back in the pot, which was brilliant. But
Look at that, Lucy.
yeah, sorry, but what happened really, we actually flew down just before COVID.
Yeah.
We came back to South Africa and this was where we were going to stay. And then, of course, our world changed. As everybody knows,
Yes.
COVID started. But here in South Africa, we had one of the hardest lockdowns in the world. And Danny, thankfully, my wife now, she said, listen, we've got to get out of Cape Town. Let's get to the country. We didn't know it was going to last for 6 months, let alone 6 weeks, you know.
So during a hard lockdown, you actually...
We moved. We were footloose and fancy free. Do you know where we ended up? We ended up on the top of the map of Africa, wilderness, this beautiful garden route. We had the ocean, we had everything. We turned into kind of hippies for 6 months, you know.
Really?
We had the most incredible experience and we realised that we didn't have to chase anything anymore. We were in the most beautiful part of probably the world, or certainly South Africa, and opportunities presented themselves. One of the opportunities I'm sure we'll talk about is I got to interview the Springbok players, the rugby players.
Oh, yes.
And during COVID, those were the kind of things that presented themselves, because I was one of the first people who got hold of Zoom and were doing online presentations.
Yes.
So the Players Fund actually said to me, Dean, would you help promote our charity?
I remember they were doing that. Yes.
Yeah, the Players Fund, for anybody who doesn't know, they're the registered charity here in South Africa who support injured rugby players.
Yes.
And all the top level guys back this charity. So there I was in wilderness on my little iPhone, interviewing some of the greatest names in South African rugby history. people like Scout Berger, Brian Habana, Jake White, of course, the management, Victor Matfield, you name it, we did it. So I understand how you put these kind of things together. So you talk about pressured moments. For me, every Thursday night was the thing. I think we've got a clip there, Gary.
We've got a clip of some of the rugby players. He's busy doing it now, so we can chat about it. But let's talk about COVID while we're here as well. And so that was obviously one of the projects that you did.
Yeah.
And I mean, your income stream was probably coming from speaking engagements.
Of course, and we were now an illegal industry because you couldn't actually.
Same as me.
Of course you were. We couldn't generate an income because we didn't have an audience.
Yeah.
And our income literally disappeared, and so I decided to do something worthwhile, which was actually to look at the comparison. Again, being a historian, thinking history should teach us about where we are now in the future. We looked at something called the Spanish flu, which happened, I'm sure you know, in
1920s.
1918 to 1920 was at its heart. And we'd gone through this before as a human race. And not only that, probably up to 100 million people died as a result of the Spanish flu. It's still, as we speak, the world's worst natural disaster. So it's hard to explain to children who are having to wear masks, who can't go to school. But some of the comfort is we've gone through this before and we'll go through it again and we will get through this.
Yeah, okay.
So two wrongs don't make a right, there's the saying. But in this case, a lot of our governments, our scientists took information from the Spanish flu, that incident that took there, and actually learnt of how to deal with it now. And we're looking at the different waves and stuff that we're experiencing now. But an interesting story, one of my favourite stories, does anybody know why it was called the Spanish flu?
No, I don't. The Spaniards had started it all, in it?
Well, that's what the Americans wanted to blame, because it started in an American army camp in Kansas. And it was the soldiers who moved to Europe for the First World War spread this thing. Now, of course, it's tourists and people travelling for business. Then it was World War I that spread this thing around the globe. The Spanish, bless them, who were neutral in the First World War, basically were reporting about this so-called flu quite openly. That one of the first people to get it was Alfonso XIII, their king. So they talked about this flu. Now, straight away, the British and the Americans could see their opportunity. They pointed at the Spanish and said, it's the Spanish flu.
Oh, man.
And do you know what the Spanish call it? They call it the French flu because they didn't want the label.
So the French flu.
There's the French as well. Do you know, but Neil Radford played for England, cricketer.
Wow, Neil Radford, I know the name
nice
as well.
Nice to see you, Neil. Thank you.
Fantastic. Murray Gardner. Hello, Murray. From Austin, Texas.
So Murray is Adrian's son, and they just travelled back to their other home, which is in Texas. So nice to see you, the Gardner family.
Lovely.
So thank you.
First soul sister. There we go, watching from the UK as well.
Thank you.
Stuart Pottinger watching from the USA. I always confuse him with Stuart Pottinger, this photography guy. Stuart, I know who you are now.
Thank you. Someone said, don't remember the ribbons. I will remember those.
Ribbons,
yeah.
Yes.
There's so many people in this conservation story. I promise you, I'll try my best. If anybody's got any suggestions, please send them in, because I'll try to get to all the people that played a role in this story.
Yes, thanks, Samantha. Nice to have you on as well. Then.
Yeah.
So, about Barry Richards and Brian McMullen.
Yeah, mixing with the cricket royalty.
Look at you.
Yes.
Barry Richards too.
Brian bought the book, Empire, War and Cricket, and as I delivered to him, we were going through, on the way, even before we got to the Eastern Cape, our spirits were lifted. We were going through Neisner, and dear Brian McMillan, as you know, one of South Africa's greatest all-rounders, I was just going to deliver him the book. He said, well, hang around, Barry Richards is coming for dinner.
He stays up there in Neisner.
So there I am, I'm having dinner with all the cricket royalty. So I mean, I just thought, you know what, this is a great move. This.
Oh, lovely. Well, I'm sure they'll know all the players that were on the Gino spot a little while ago. We had the Triple Crown, 8 of them in the studio with us, so you can have a look at that too.
But before we go any further, Gary, can we turn the tides? I want to ask Gino a few questions because he's asking me too many questions.
Oh, really?
I'm going to just because I'm used to doing interviews, you see. So I'm going to now, and I know
Gary warned me about this
he doesn't know what I'm going to ask. They're not bad.
Okay.
First, must design friends. You don't have any friends.
I tell you what, I hope I didn't look like that creature. It was wonderful, wasn't it? I'm going to start with an easy one, and it's got to be the right answer, because there is a right answer. Elvis or the Beatles?
Beatles.
That's the wrong answer.
Beatles. I've got Beatles. It's behind you there. You can see.
But he was called the king.
Yeah, he was called the king.
He
I
was
know.
called the king. There was no one else like the king. All right, we'll agree to disagree on that one.
Beatles or the Stones?
You know, Beatles or Stones? I'll take Stones over
No,
Beatles.
listen. I've been to Graceland's twice. There's no one like Elvis. You know, I mean.
No,
he's the-
look, I can get Elvis, you know, and to be honest, the first record I ever bought was an Elvis record.
Okay, fair
So
enough.
I'll give you that.
No, he was
I'll give you that one.
a frontiersman man. He was there at the start.
Yes, he was.
Second question.
Yes.
Your most embarrassing moment on stage in front of an audience.
Oh, I don't know if it's ever happened to you, but look, there've been quite a few of them. Okay, quite a few times, but I remember the one, and it wasn't so much embarrassment as because you always get through. You know, when you're on stage, there's always a way
You wing it.
to wing it through. There was ones where I couldn't wing it through, and one of my the pegs on my drum stool. I was playing drums with the band. One of the pegs at the back fell off, so I fell backwards, and my legs went up, and I fell off the stage, and there was nothing I could do. but most embarrassing or most terrifying thing on stage is when you get distracted. It doesn't happen often, but man, if you go blank, like there are moments where it can be 10 seconds
Feels like
that
a
you just
lifetime.
try and think what you're supposed to be saying. And I'll never forget, I was doing a character on stage. It was in front of 700 people or 800 people at the Baxter Theatre, triple tier theatre. It was amazing at the Jive Funny Fest, and I was looking at this audience, and they were so interesting. There was a whole bunch of interesting people, and my mind started to wander. I told a joke, and I got a laugh for the punchline, but I didn't realize what I just said. And so it was literally just, my mind was just putting the words out there. And I got this laugh, and I thought, hell, where am I? What did I say? And for about 10 seconds, there was just terror. and I somehow scrambled to the end of my script and found a place, and then I found my way back and finally made it through. But it was terrifying.
As a comedian, are you on autopilot? Because when I give talks, people say, how do you remember all the dates? How do you keep the narrative going? But you go into a zone, don't you?
Yes, there's an element. There is an element of autopilot, and in that situation, it was almost all went too far into the autopilot, and I wasn't concentrating. So it was terrifying.
No, well, that's not too bad, and I think I could imagine you kind of winging it. The third question, and it's a little bit more serious, but I want you to think about this. If we could resurrect the great man, Nelson Mandela, if we could bring him back for 5 minutes, how would you report the current state of South Africa to him?
I said, needs you back, man. Needs you back.
Needs you back.
I tell you what, there was something about Mandela that was uniting. It was just a unity that he brought to everybody. Everybody sort of liked him in some way. He was a people person. He just, you almost knew his integrity was intact always, and he wasn't scared to say when he was wrong either. So I'd say, buddy, we need you back, or who do we go to, or who are your guys? You know, who did you go to when you were here?
Yeah. So anybody who doesn't know, I'm, believe it or not, I turned 50 in July last year. So I've had quite a big year. So not only have we moved to Port Elizabeth, I got married, and we had a beautiful daughter last October, on the 8th of October. It took
Late starter.
They call it late Lamaki, late lamb. Late Lamaki, yeah. So myself and Danny, we had to do a lot of sort of soul searching and adjustment. But she has been an absolute blessing. She is such a little character. Everybody says that about their kids. But this one, she's just into everything. She's so curious, and we wanted to bring her up that way. When she's in South Africa, she is literally taken with us wherever we go. She loves people. So we're at the beach this day, and we've only taken her to the beach once or twice, but this day we put her down on the sand and off she went. And I thought, this looks really sort of cute, and I said to Danny, she looks like a turtle. She looks like a little turtle trying to get to the water. And the rest is history, because as I said, I put the video up thinking, okay, a few people will watch it. That was almost sort of eight or 9 days ago. We're over 20 million views on this video.
20 million
20 million views.
on this.
So I can spend hours and days writing all this wonderful historical content, trying to, add to education. And I promise you, listen to this, Gino. My following, which was quite big on Facebook, was about 22,000.
Yes.
Since then, we've just passed today, in the last hour, 75,000 followers.
Unbelievable.
As a result of the little turtle video that you're going to see now, I'm sure. So.
Let's have a look at the little turtle. Oh my. So okay. What she needs is a helmet and a camouflage, and she'll be going through the jungle.
But you watch her speed up now. She looks back, she thinks, shall I go for it? And then she speeds up. This is the thing, she's thinking. Am I going to go for that C? Yes, I am. And you watch the speed.
All right then.
You watch your sound spray in a minute. She's off. But she looks back for Dad's reassurance any minute now. She's watch this.
She's just seen where you are. No,
She goes, off she goes. And then
just chicken.
and the cheeky smile. I don't know who she gets that from. I think probably her mum will say me. I don't know. But no, the funny thing was about that, we had such traction, and everybody kept saying, millions of people were watching this, and we had thousands of people saying, where's part 2? What happened when the little turtle reached the sea? The problem was, when the little turtle reached the sea, I was in my Speedos holding it. And that, I'm afraid, I never thought me and my Speedos would be viewed by 8 million people, but that's what's happened as well. So it's taken a life of his own.
Have you got the one of his Speedo as well, Gary? Are you going to look it up as well?
Thankfully not. Thank you, Gary. I'm glad. You'll have to go online to watch the Speedo one.
Because let me tell you, my wife said as soon as she saw that Speedo, I was like, what on earth is he wearing? Tell him he's got to sort out his
Gary, please, the viewers have had enough tonight. Please, spare them. But it just shows you, doesn't it, the power of social media. And the beauty is, tonight we've got an audience from all around the world. Yeah. They've come, they've watched. They say you never work with animals and kids, but proves that you should, because that's what they're doing. But for me, it's fantastic because I want to show some of my personality online. Yes, it's part of me. I'm a family man now, and got the most beautiful wife and beautiful daughter. But I've got a feeling she's going to become more popular at some stage, because I think people are waiting for the next baby video. Our little baby turtle, as she's known.
It's unbelievable. 20 million views.
Incredible.
And I mean, that must have created like a whole. Your phone must have gone crazy.
My phone, every day, I think I've got about 300 WhatsApps that are not answered. I'm getting messages from Bangladesh, from Trinidad, from Canada, from the United States, from Australia, saying how cute is your baby and those kind of things. And I don't know, I'm a bit reserved. I'm a private person. I didn't know whether to put that out, but how beautiful is that? And I think we had something like 90,000 comments, and only 2 people said, "Oh, should you allow your baby on the sand because of the bacteria?" And I thought, do you know
bacteria?
What? No, I thought
they need bacteria. Come on.
What can you do? For me,
otherwise you get in with another COVID.
No, you're a dad. It's one of the best places to grow up in South Africa, because you experience nature, isn't it?
Yes.
And that baby, she's going to grow up speaking Slovakian, Afrikaans, English. She's got a choice of living here or going back to Europe. I hope she lives here, because that's where we are. But what a place to grow up. And we go back to education. I still believe we have some of the best schools in the world here, with old-fashioned values, and I'm looking forward to her really growing in this country.
It's a lovely place to bring. It's a lovely place to bring up children. You know.
Well, that's it. We're sounding old now, aren't we?
They do. And I know I've got the second little getting to know you part to sort of round it off nicely.
Okay,
there we go.
Getting to know you, getting to know all about you.
Julian.
Wonderful.
I like this. Okay. So, what makes your favourite place that you've ever been to better than all the other places that you've been to?
Well, I've said it before, South Africa and its people.
Yeah.
When I first arrived in the 90s, the hospitality, the fact that it was spontaneous, people would open their doors. I often say here in South Africa, people will offer you a meal and a bed at the drop of a hat. Whereas often, can I say this about Britain, we're quite reserved. We tend to go to a pub to meet.
Yes.
It's a public place. Whereas here, I felt like there was a really warm welcome. And it was a place where I could kind of give an opinion and people listened.
Yeah.
You weren't taught that a lot of the time. So no, I've been to some beautiful places. I've been, and the world's out there, and I'm going to take that little baby and my wife with me, and we're going to travel. But no, South Africa because of its people.
Yeah. Oh, good. The worst job that you've ever had.
Oh, this is a good one.
Good moan now.
Here we go. It was a rotten job as well. And it goes back to how I met my wife. I come from a town called Minehead, and Minehead, for the British audience will know, is famous for a place called Butlins Holiday Camp. Butlins is an old-fashioned holiday camp that was created in the 1950s after the war, and 8,000 people each week go to this camp. It sounds like a concentration camp, but it's a holiday camp, I promise you. And my wife, and there were a lot of Europeans, she's Slovakian, there were Hungarians, Romanians, Polish. They were brought in because they're very good workers, but probably they don't ask for the money that the British do as well. We won't talk Brexit, that's another thing.
Yes.
But Danny, wonderful person. She was running probably the best restaurant there. And anyway, I met her because of Butlins Holiday Camp. But we go back to when I was 16 years of age. And I was nagging my father because he knew the guy who ran the HR department at Butlins. Now back then it wasn't so nice as it is today.
Yes.
And I remember turning up and my dad made the call. And this guy said, listen, your boy better be prepared. I've got one job, but it's the only job I've got. And I went in and he said to me on the very first day, listen, you're going to do a job now that you'll never do again in the rest of your life. And he handed me a pair of dungarees and he handed me a brush and I had to go and clean the toilets.
I knew it was coming out.
The toilets was one thing. There was another one where I was down on my hands and knees. Remember, everyone's on holiday. And the worst thing is they gave you a name badge. My name is Dean. And I remember this old lady saying, oh, shame, look at you down there. The best day, and I only lasted 4 days, Gino. I'm not a hero. I just said enough's enough. The best day was picking up litter in the car park. That was the highlight of my 4 days.
So, my name is Dean. I'll pick up your litter and I'll clean your toilets.
No, nothing worse.
Someone's got to do it.
That was horrific memory. So Butlins has good and bad memories.
I get that. Minehead. There was a Monty Python sketch on Minehead actually. But a Python fan with the by-elections and the way.
Probably was, yeah. John Cleese, he's a West Country man. That's the way he would have gone there. Yeah,
it was very funny, but it was a bit. Well, you can look it up.
Look that one up.
Biggest pressure moment that you've ever had.
Right. Apart from appearing on the Gino show.
Oh yes.
It had to be when I went back to the UK and. The Empire War in cricket had just come out, and I thought, listen, we're going to make this big in England. It's about cricket. Everybody will want to see it. And I remember paying a lot of money for an agent, and this agent didn't get me much, but she got me one thing: an interview on national BBC radio, on Radio 2 on the drive time. And I had 3 minutes, and it was a live interview. And the guy said to me before we went live, "Don't worry, but we're speaking to 8.5 million people." 8.5 million people. So I just literally had to think, I'm just speaking to you. Don't think about, don't swear, please don't. And honestly, that was a pressure moment. And thankfully, he was very kind to me and we got through the thing. But talk about pressure. 8 million people listening to every word.
BBC too. That is a big one. That is a big one. And it's that 2 minutes or whatever.
2 minutes.
It's like, Yeah. Crazy. Your downtime. How do you spend your downtime? What do you do when you relax?
Well, at the moment we're not getting much sleep, so I'd like to say sleep, but I'm not much of a napper. I mean, our little darling, she's a live wire in the day, so we take it in turns for the spare room, which is not conducive to a happy marriage, but we get our sleep. But no, I'm a big sports fan. I love exercise. I swim a lot. Hence the speedos.
Oh yes,
speedos.
The speedos. You do the ocean swimming.
No, I love the gym. I love swimming. I still try and play a bit of football and tennis. Okay. I'm a Bristol City supporter, so I'm long suffering. That's why I lost my hair. You know, I'm always supporting the underdog.
One day they'll take the cup.
yeah. But history's my passion. I mean,
Yeah,
storytelling.
Of course.
I mean, this isn't a job, is it?
You
I mean,
do
having
the
fun
job you
is
love. You do the
fantastic.
job you love.
So
That's
that's my
good.
downtime,
Good.
sport and reading about history and stuff.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Have you ever been in a car accident?
Oh my goodness, have I been in a
It's
car?
a story. It's always a
Have I
story.
been in a car accident? Probably,
Oh, really?
probably one you've never heard of.
Yeah.
When I was 18, I just passed my test. And I remember when you're 18, you want to drive your dad's car everywhere.
yeah.
You just want to take people. And my sister wanted to go out. So I said, okay, I'll take you out. So I dropped her off in the local town. And as I was coming back, pitch black, it was the middle of winter. And where we live, close to where we live, there's a racehorse stable.
Oh.
And my dad had a Sierra Sapphire. Do you remember
Oh yes,
Ford
it's
Sierra?
the one with the.
And they're curved, which they're kind of smooth and curved. And thankfully, it probably saved my life that night, because as I went round the corner, there were 4 racehorses in the middle of the road.
Man.
And to this day, I can't remember what happened, but apparently 3 ran back down the lane and 1 horse stayed there. I hit this horse, it went onto the roof, it flattened the roof of the car.
Jeez.
The only thing I did was that I knocked out my front tooth, so this is actually a crown. It knocked me out, and the car travelled about 50 foot, and people coming the other way could see what happened.
Shame.
And I had concussion. But that was my brush with death. I thank the Lord that he spared me that day. And do you know what? The good old NHS, I was taken to the local hospital in Minehead, even after that incident, and I was discharged within the next hour because they said I was okay.
Oh man, after concussion.
So it was quite some story. So
Ronald Menard, there he is.
Morning,
Morning,
Ronald.
guys. He says he's all the way from New Zealand.
Have a shower, please.
Yes, please. Chris asked, sorry, never updated my profile. What an amazing check. Thank you very much. Michael Clement, he's on the beachfront here. Love that.
Okay,
Thank
brilliant.
you. It's pineapples because of Bathurst. You see?
Yes, big
Bathurst, the pineapple there.
Yeah.
Christina here from the UK. Hello, Krista. The Speedos went viral, says Philip.
Not sure about that.
So, thank you so much. Fantastic to have you on. Wow.
Keep up the